the show, we try to explain to you all things that are happening in our society. Things you need to know about. Because despite the fact you may have your orientation, you may have your way of doing things, there are others out there in our society who may think differently, who may behave differently. That does not mean to say we should condemn them simply because they're behaving differently or doing something that is not to our liking. You cannot like everyone, you cannot want them to be like you, but you've got to understand people in our society. We live in a multi-racial, multicultural, we have everything in Trinidad. It's one big melting pot, it's a kalaloo, we call it all that kind of different names. And one thing I was always proud of when I started doing sex education almost 15 years ago, I was proud of the fact that we are a tolerant society. We are more tolerant than some of the other Caribbean countries. We are even more tolerant than some places in the United States. But at the same time, sometimes we behave differently, or we're indifferent towards people. We need to change that. I want to introduce Mr. Colin Robinson from CAISO, Executive Director of CAISO. No, it's not a CAISO center. We're talking about CAISO House. CAISO. Correct? I got it right. Yeah. CAISO. Tell us about CAISO.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on the show.
You're welcome.
CAISO is an organization that started 4 years ago.
4 years ago, okay.
And I just went to David Rilla concert and we wanted to bring some lyrics to make a politician cringe.
A woman body into jelly. That's the best part of it.
A politician got up in 2009 and said that a particular government policy was not going to deal with sexual orientation. And so we decided that we in society needed to deal with it.
Yes.
And so we've been building an organization. We have a non-profit company. We have a board that has gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, and heterosexual people on it. And we're trying to make talking about and understanding and respecting sexual diversity mainstream and normal in Trinidad and Tobago. Some of the same things that the show is doing with sexuality in general.
Well, how you go about it? What's the way you...
Well, some people call us a pressure group. We try to do some of that.
Advocacy group.
Yeah. We try to change laws where they're unfair laws that actually say that people can't have sex in private that doesn't hurt anybody else. We try and build public conversations and education around these issues and build relationships with people who are doing work around other things to do with bodies as well, people who are working on disability issues, people who are working in women's rights movements and gender issues. We also are trying to provide support for people who become victimized because of their sexuality, to get them justice, but also to get people healing and services. We have a partnership with the psychiatry unit at Mount Hope. We run an affirmative support group for people of different sexual orientations. And those are some of the things that we do.
I want to be the devil's advocate here.
Sure, I get that a lot.
Do you think that a parliamentarian in Norway would actually work towards that? In this present government?
In the present, well, the government is under siege right now, so it's a little hard for people to take.
That's why I asked the question. They're under siege.
It's hard for people to take leadership on these issues. I'm pretty sure there are people who are gay, lesbian, and bisexual on both sides of the aisle in Parliament.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure that people in their parties know that. The challenge is that we as society, where how we deal with sex in our own personal lives is real different than how we want to be seen as dealing with sex.
How we vote is not how we party.
So we have different words. So we do this performance, and our leaders do this performance of trying to be pious around these issues. They're not doing that in their personal lives, but they have to appear to be righteous and pious around sexual issues. That's a real problem.
When you're grounded in the sexual area of Trinidad and Tobago, like I am, you do know it. You do hear, you do see. So you are aware of what's going on. And what is portrayed is something totally different from what is practiced. Because our society expects that.
But let me make another point,
yes,
because you had opened with talking about Trinidad and Tobago being more tolerant. And one of the things we said is we want to see if that's actually true. So we went and we hired a pollster. Well, we didn't hire him. He raised the money. But we went to a pollster who does political polling in the region, one of the best. And he actually did a survey. And the survey showed just what you said. for non-discrimination. People say that it's okay, that people shouldn't suffer discrimination or be punished or victimized for who they are. And that's what we want politicians to know and understand.
Yes.
And hopefully that will help them do the right thing and, you know, make it safe for their fellow parliamentarians as well.
One of the things that I found to be the problem when I first started off with this, because like I was telling you before, in 1998 or 99, I registered a company called Gales. And the reason for that is because I had an idea that I wanted to promote this type of integration with people to understand personal sexuality and not discriminate. There are other groups that will form during that period of time till now, and of course you know the pressure groups and you know things that are happening in society. And yes, there are people who are for it and against it. But do you think that one of our major obstacles is because of the amount of religious or church that we have in Trinidad? That is one of the barriers that we face?
It's one of the barriers, and it's not just in Trinidad and Tobago. Traditional religions. There's some religions that are becoming more open and accepting. The Presbyterian Seminary here is doing a very interesting conversation on Saturday at Nabrima College to kind of talk about these issues on homosexuality and on society and how the church needs to begin to have this conversation. But what we're also seeing is people really hardening around these issues. It's happening in Islam, it's happening in Christianity, and you find this kind of fundamentalism around sexuality in general, sexual diversity, reproductive issues, gender diversity, all these kinds of issues. And you find it's a global movement now. Yeah. And you find the Caribbean is a good place to go.
Yeah.
Caribbean, Africa, and particularly have become these places where these international fundamentalist movements.
Why is that?
Because there are less and less opportunities where they're based in the north.